First order of business is roll call. All are present with the exception of Alderman Vitale and Alderman Turner, who are both excused. First order of business is approval of the minutes of August 28th.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any changes? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next, we have discussion regarding penalties, future enforcement, and communication activities related to illegal fireworks. I think all of us on the council have gotten complaints over the years, and they've gotten worse in the last couple of years. It seems like there's been a proliferation of businesses selling fireworks around the state, and so more people are buying them, and I think it's time that we start educating our people regarding what the rules and regulations are for fireworks and that they're not allowed in the city. And I know some of the older people have asked that this be put on the agenda. Alderman Stefanski, do you have any comments or questions, or Alderman?
I've been getting calls constantly during, like, the whole week before 4th of July, week after 4th of July, constant with fireworks. And, I mean, even in my neighborhood, they're like a block away. And
I have them all over my neighborhood
they just
too.
never seem to stop.
I know.
And I just want, I think that what we need to do is, we need to increase the fines, and they need to be given out every time the police are able to catch them. Like, make it hurt, because they're affecting people who have PTSD, they're affecting people's pets,
Yeah,
and it's unacceptable, and it's like they don't care. And so if they don't care, then we're gonna start penalizing them for it, that's my thought.
Mr. President,
Alderwoman Grisham.
District 3 has had some issues as well.
Let it be noted that Alderman Turner and Vitale are now present.
What, you guys carpool?
My car broke down, sorry.
Oh, no.
To bring the alderman up to speed, we're talking about the firework issue in the city. Personally, District 3 has had some issues as well, and I think we can blanket it for every district. I think the bigger problem, and the thing that ties our hands more as a council, and I really don't like using those words that we tie our hands. I think we've given our due diligence of what we can do based on law by placing ordinances within our city, such as they're not allowed to be, thrown off. We're not allowing to be sold, but that doesn't mean you can't go east of 43rd, west of 124, and go to your local Walmart or otherwise and obtain these fireworks. So what do we do further as a council? I don't know, to be honest with you. You can increase the fine, but then we look at the enforcement issue. What I think is, as time has gone on, people have gotten more blatant with it, and I think that we have to come up with a solid plan as to how to approach enforcement on it. Increasing the fine is great if you're able to give out the tickets. So I really think President Lysak has, an idea on education, but we have a level of lawlessness and people who look at this as such a patriotic thing, and I worry more about the risk of safety and people harming themselves. And even if it's one out of all of them that are doing it, it's one too many. So the changes that I think really do need to occur are at state level, and what do we do as a local level government? So I can encourage residents when they call to call their state reps, to lobby, do what they need to do. I don't know that it's something that we as a council take up at a state level, but that's really my 2 cents.
I think there's a lot of confusion with residents because of the fact that you can buy them all over the state. They're advertised, you go down any major highway in the state and you see the signs, fireworks for sale. Everybody thinks it's legal now, or has that impression. So staff has come up with what I think is a pretty good communication plan, a draft plan to start emphasizing and letting our residents know that these are illegal, that we do enforce the ordinances, and yes, I emphasize with police department, because you can't be all over the place on Fourth of July. I mean, I know what it's like in my neighborhood, and there are probably 10 different places in my neighborhood that are setting them off. And if it's my little neighborhood, I'm sure it's all over everybody else's. So you can't be every place at once. But I think it's important that we start to tell people what the fines are, that they will be enforced, that if they're caught, there's going to be action taken, and we're not just gonna look the other way. So,
Mr. President?
Alderwoman Keene.
In order to write the citation, do you have to catch them with the match and the fuse and lighting it off? Is it, if they're going off in a driveway and you're the homeowner and you own the driveway while they're in the middle of being ignited, what justifies being able to issue the citation?
We would give the citation to people that we see lighting off fireworks, or we have a third-party witness that says they'll come to court. Now, it's a complicated issue, and West Dallas is really not much different than any other community in this state. The amount of fireworks is astonishing. The enforcement is next to nothing. We tell our officers to enforce it when it's repeated or egregious. So last year during the fireworks season, I believe we issued one citation when the officer saw someone shooting a firework at another human being. That would be egregious, so that gets to the safety issues that you spoke about. But fireworks are in every neighborhood, in every city, town, and village in this state. If we respond to complaints we get from citizens, what we are doing is merely responding because Bill is upset, where in the next neighborhood, Mary is fine with it and Mary doesn't call. So it's the same conduct, people lighting off fireworks, and in one neighborhood, they're gonna get a ticket because someone's upset, and in another neighborhood, no one's ever gonna call, so they're not gonna get a ticket. So you've got a disparity issue. I've checked with other chiefs, we're very consistent in our city with the low level of enforcement. Not going to be a much different experience in Greenfield, Hales Corners, Greendale, any suburban community that you might want to talk about.
Chief, have you had a chance to review
I
the,
did, yep, and that looks,
what are your thoughts on it?
yeah, I have, education is, I think, where we need to be. There is a disconnect between what the state, how can the state allow you to sell something that in most communities
You
you
can't
can't
use.
Thank you. So there is
I
a,
know.
an inherent disconnect in the law. So perhaps some sort of communication to the state elected officials. We certainly in the police department can do a better job. Every year, we communicate with the officers what our expectations are going in. We were not a perfect 100% this year. There certainly were egregious situations that we could have and probably should have cited that we didn't. We always work on those, but you're not gonna see a lot of tickets written.
Mr. President, just so you
Alderman
know,
Turner.
on my area, down 43rd Street, I went and checked with the village president over at West Milwaukee. What do they do there? And for the most part, it's pretty much nothing. Even though they do tell the people, those pop-up tents that they can't sell, and they have to have ID to show that they live in the city, in cities other than around here or whatever. I talked to someone who used to work in one of those places, and they said, we don't do anything about that, we don't watch that, never did. And so I don't know, other than, like you said, in enforcement, but, enforcing those places seemed like a big thing as well. And I talked to, forgot the guy's name there about it, and he said, we have checked, but I don't believe they do. And like you said, if you're gonna sell it 2 blocks away from my district, what's the difference? They're gonna play it. They're gonna do it.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, if we started citing people, and we certainly can do that. And if you ask people, do you know this was illegal before we're citing them? Over 50% of them are gonna go, no, if it's illegal,
Yeah.
how can I?
Right, I
Right.
bought it.
Exactly. You can
So
buy
there's
it.
a disconnect.
Yeah, definitely is.
Mr. President.
Alderman Stefanski.
Can people with, can you give people citations with doorbells, like Ring doorbells, cameras? Can you do that by, if people send that to you?
So video, and Kale can support me on this or disagree with me. Video can be challenging in court. For video to get introduced as evidence in court, you have to have someone verify the video. So I used to be a drug guy for a living.
Wait, you got
Before you're.
a drug enforcement guy.
Everyone has a pass.
We're all writing.
So video is a huge part of that game, video and or audio tapes. So for me to use an audio tape or a videotape in court, I would have to testify, hi, I'm a detective, I was with the informant when this was recorded, I listened to it live, and I can verify that the tape I'm about to play for you is an accurate presentation of what occurred on that day, date, and time. So video, we do, we're certainly open in the reckless driving campaign to use video, but you need someone to come to court and verify, yep, this is accurate video, that's the day, date, and time, it's accurate, and the person depicted on it is Bill, and here's how I know it's Bill. So you can do it with video. At the end of the day, it probably is not worth the investigative effort, because for every one ticket you might be able to write based on video, you could write 20 just driving around and seeing people.
But now if we educate people up until the 4th of July, and we hit every house in West Dallas, nobody can say, I didn't know anymore. And
Oh,
then we can
you'll still-
justify giving them.
Yeah,
something.
they would have a less of an opportunity to say that, but, I know that the city evaluates emails that we send city employees. The percentage of emails that are opened. Just because you send something doesn't mean it's opened. If it's opened, it doesn't,
Unless it's
I mean, it's
certified, you can't prove that they've seen
understood,
it.
Yep.
Right.
so.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitale.
yeah, for the last couple of years, I've have really now he stopped calling me, but one gentleman who lives in my district,
Sure, we all
I
know
get
that.
it.
Yep, he's called me too.
He's calling
Right.
me too.
it's not you.
No, I got him now, though.
But anyway, the gentleman has been a pain in the butt, really until a couple of months ago. Now he ceased to come, So he tried to promote to have fireworks to our local city parks, and I
They wanted
don't
a
think it's
permit.
gonna happen. I don't think that's something that's logical. There's too many houses, the surrounding, I don't think it's gonna work. Also, my neighbor next door he had a fireworks, and I don't like it, he had one night he was shooting up firecracker fly, and he always kept doing that. Well, I said, call the police. As simple as that. It says, whether they will give you an issue a citation or not, they might, if you, like the chief says, if you get somebody says the third party or second, that you did it, so maybe, you could get cited. So this man actually, he's been involved now with the state is not gonna do anything. He says, I'm gonna go to the state fair. I said, the state fair, do whatever you want there. They're not even gonna talk to you, which they did.
He did call, he did do that.
Well, he went, I don't know what.
And he
did
did
get
call,
on
he
me.
did talk to someone from the state.
Yeah, they brush him off, I know they did. So the questions it is, to promote, this plan, maybe a good idea to do something about it. But then again, it's just like a guns, or just like fireworks. They sell them in our parking lot, anywhere you go, they got tents and they sell firecrackers. So the state is not stopping it, they promote. Gun, the same thing too. In many places, they sell guns under the table, but that's besides the point. But that's what happened. You don't have laws that really work for the welfare of any city, really. We're talking about on a state level just as well, because we can't do much about it.
No, we can't do anything here, Alderman Vitelli, other than we've got our ordinance, we can enforce our ordinance, but everybody can see why, there is a proliferation of fireworks today. Apparently well, I know there's gotta be big money in selling fireworks. These people come around well, before we had the ordinances, they'd be set up on our busy streets, Highway 100 with tents and that, they pay the property owners, a few $100s or whatever, and they could set up their tent and sell fireworks for a month. Now they can do it all over the state and it's legal, so, the fact that the state doesn't change, means that they're paying a lot of money in lobbying fees, there's no question about that. And that's why the state reps are not gonna change the law, simple as that. So I think the best thing that we can do is, if the committee agrees, go forward with this communication plan. I give staff a lot of credit for coming up with this. And, if anyone has any other ideas relative to what we can be doing, I think we'd all be interested in hearing it. Sure. Anything else, to come on this?
I would just like to see more enforcement on it. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, and Chief, I understand totally what you're saying, because although I hear fireworks all over my neighborhood, I haven't gotten one complaint about fireworks from my immediate neighborhood. Get them from other neighborhoods, but right around my house, nobody seems, they don't care. It's one night and, they put up with it for a night.
And we do respond to complaints and we do warn people if we have to come back. We're gonna give you a ticket, but most people heed that warning and stop.
Till tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
right.
there's a new batch of officers on it.
Mr.
They know the game,
President,
yeah.
I just have one thing to circle back to, and it was Alderman Stefanski who mentioned, increase the fine. I don't think it would hurt to increase the fine. My question to Kale would be, are we at maximum? The
I don't
fine?
even know what the fine is right now.
Exactly, I think it's $4.36, there's something to that effect. Thank you.
What is the
And I
fine?
think we're
I
doing,
don't know.
That's what he's looking,
Kale's
Absolutely,
looking it up
thanks.
now.
Kale's looking to find out.
I see. Anyway, I have to say that it isn't a problem in my neighborhood. I hear them, in the distance, but in my immediate neighborhood, I have to say there's no problem with it. It's not just on July 4th. Sometimes they do it for celebrations of one kind or another. But it takes place not just on July 4th, a celebration, I have to say that. And I perceive no problem in my particular neighborhood. Actually, I commend the alderman for probably bringing it up and have a discussion and a plan in place. However, I don't know if anyone really will listen.
The thing about it though, if you have that plan in place, is it gonna shut them off completely? No. If you get 10%, I'd be happy with 10%, to tell you the truth. And you get 20, I'd be ecstatic,
$1,000 is the maximum under state law.
okay.
And where are
I
we at?
guess, I guess that's what I would look at changing, if anything, because then I think we've done everything within our power as a council in adding the communications as well.
I would then, I don't know if someone lighting off fireworks that moved into West Dallas that doesn't know that fireworks aren't illegal because they just bought it 5 minutes away and have a party, that we slap them with a $1,000 fine.
Well, it's up to the judge.
Right,
You can make that a part of the media campaign.
Yeah,
right.
That's more so what I was speaking of. And-
Even $400 is a lot more than I thought it would.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, I think it's upwards towards 400, 436, something like that. And Chief Mitchell, would that be something that it would have to be like egregious versus what Alderwoman Keene said? Okay, we've got, you know,
Yeah.
a sparkler, which is technically illegal.
Yeah, we would-
Versus we're putting on a show.
We would still probably warn a lot of the people and stick to egregious conduct, but I guarantee you, police officers, while I can't prove it, probably encountered more than one egregious situation.
Okay.
Like the example in the park, we counseled people, we did not agree with their approach to this massive fireworks show and their statements that they couldn't figure out who did it. I guarantee you, if I wanted to figure out who was doing it, I would have figured it out in 45 seconds. So, yeah, we're not always gonna get it right, but we'll try.
500?
500? So if there's this desire to raise the fine, then I think individual older people could
Would sponsor
introduce
that.
and sponsor that. Anything else on the fireworks issue?
Thank you.
If not, we'll move on to resolution to provide services as a wireless 911 public safety answering point. And I'll let both chiefs have a brief period, 5 minutes or so, to fill us in on what their objections or reasons for wanting it are.
He's opposed, so he can go first.
Okay? And in fairness, Chief Pooler wasn't here last meeting, so we'll give you an opportunity to start.
Sure. So you've all received the white paper. I know it's a very complicated issue, so if you have any questions tonight, please feel free to ask. I'll start by saying, had this idea been floated a few years ago, I definitely would have been in favor for it, because there are tangible benefits to our citizens. By eliminating the delay between the Milwaukee County dispatcher answering the phone and then transferring it to West Allis, you're going to get cops and firefighters and paramedics to doors faster. However, this year, a lot has changed in the makeup of 911 in the county. What's brand new this year is the governor's shared revenue bill with the innovation fund. So any two governmental agencies that come together to eliminate duplicity throughout government are eligible to get money from the state that they never were before in the tunes of millions of dollars. So that is a great opportunity that we need to take a look at as a city. A second thing that has changed, the state has asked every county in the state to designate a primary PSAP. PSAP is a public safety answering point, or, where the 911 calls come into. Every county in the state, except for Milwaukee County, in the past has designated a PSAP, and that PSAP is eligible for millions of dollars of state aid. The 75-cent fee, I think it is, on your cell phone bill, that goes to fund that fund that gets redistributed to 911 centers throughout the state. Milwaukee County has the most citizens, we have the most cell phones, we pay the most 75-cent fees throughout the state, but yet we've never been able to benefit from that because we never designated a primary PSAP. That changed last month when the ICC, all the mayors and city administrators, city managers in the county selected Bayside Communication as the primary PSAP. That means Bayside is now eligible for millions of dollars of state aid with the goal of streamlining the 911 service. On top of that, City of Milwaukee has the largest existing 911 center in the state. They are going through a huge personnel and technological upgrade, and they are willing to take or have conversations with any other municipality in the county about consolidating under one roof. So there's 3 new opportunities out there that could save the city millions of dollars a year. So by changing this, then I'm not here to push consolidation. I'm saying, I've worked here for 21 years now, some of you have been here a lot longer than I have. Every year the budget is tough. Every year we're asked to do more with less and to look for ways to streamline our operations and eliminate redundancies. And now we've got 3 dispatch centers with City of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, and Bayside that all have millions of dollars in infrastructure that we either have or have to replace in the coming years. So I'm just saying that you guys, as a body, need to make that decision. I guess that's why I wanted to pump the brakes on all this. I'm not here today to say we need to consolidate. I'm saying we need to have conversations. This change, while it would save time on the front end, is going to increase the workload for a center that's already overworked and in a geographically small footprint that has no room to expand. If you look at Bayside, who already does their own cellular 911, they staff more and they take more calls than we do, even though they have less people. So it's logical to me that if we make this change, we're going to be back here asking for more dispatchers and more technology in the future. So if you look at the city's capital budget, 2026 is when the police have a $1.2 million radio upgrade coming that we wouldn't need if we were to consolidate. So to me, that's the drop dead, that's the deadline, that's the line in the sand where we have to make a decision is before the 2026 capital plan gets introduced. So I would propose pushing off this small change and looking at the next year and a half with consolidating with one of those further centers. And if you want to, great. If you don't, then no harm, no foul. We make the change and we save those seconds on the front end with the change in dispatch technology.
Mr. President,
Alderman Weigel.
this is a good time for questions.
Sure.
So Milwaukee County has a Peace app,
Correct.
and all those 75-cent fees are going to Bayside.
Correct.
So how does that come to us then? We gotta
Because
throw in with Bayside.
we, in theory, that's the option on the table, is that we could pursue consolidation with them because they are getting state money that is earmarked for consolidating dispatch centers and improvement technology in the 911 center.
Okay, and the ICC made this decision because Bayside lobbied very hard for them. No one else was interested in being the Peace app.
Yeah, so the ICC being, the top elected officials from all the municipalities, they're not dispatch subject matter experts. So they put together a subcommittee of police, fire, and IT professionals in the county and said, you guys do all the research and come up with a recommendation for us. So I was on that committee, selected by our mayor and the mayor of Wauwatosa. So we started by soliciting every PSAP in the county. So we have 12 PSAPs in the county. So 12 911 centers that all have the same technology in place and all do the same job. And asked which ones are interested. And only 3 were interested: Milwaukee County, City of Milwaukee, and Bayside. Everybody else said, no, we're not interested in being the primary PSAP. So we started from there. The state has a large list of requirements for PSAPs. So we went through it and assured that all 3 meet those requirements, and they did. And then we kind of went down a pro and con list of all 3 of them, listened to the presentations. End of the day, we did not make a recommendation because we couldn't come to a consensus, but we had representatives on that committee from Milwaukee County, from City of Milwaukee, and from Bayside. So they were all gonna vote for their own centers no matter what. So we couldn't come to consensus, but we did grade it based on criteria. Bayside had the most points, most favorable points of all 3 centers. We gave that information to the ICC. The other kind of tricky thing is Bayside dispatches for all 7 communities in the North Shore. So all 7 of those mayors and village managers voted for Bayside. So they already had the deck stacked in their favor.
I'll tell you honestly, in my heart, I'd like it that when the 911 call is answered, placed in West Dallas, that the person, primary responsibility is the city of West Dallas and is familiar. And I understand the technology is gonna come up on the screen and tell them whether it's North 62nd or South 62nd, whatever street. But in my heart, I like the idea that the person answering the call doesn't necessarily live in West Dallas, but only has 11 square miles to worry about.
There's value there for sure.
Any other questions for Chief Pooler?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Haas.
Yeah, and Mason, again, currently, we were talking about Bayside, but currently it's the county that's handling our cellular 911 calls.
Yeah, so 90-some% of our 911 calls come in via cell. So those 90-some% start at Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management already. And they're building a brand new state-of-the-art center on the county grounds right now. They got that approved in the budget. So they're building that center to be scalable, because right now they don't do any primary dispatching. They answer and then they transfer to every municipality that they dispatch for, or that they answer for, I should say. But they're building their center to be scalable. So as opportunities for consolidation present themselves, they'll have the footprint needed to add more dispatch councils, more personnel.
Mr. President,
Alderman Stefanski.
when it goes to that center, how many seconds do we lose by it not going to ours?
That's a good question. I don't think we've got concrete data on there. Probably in 30 to 60 seconds, I think, is the general
We
understanding.
sampled calls on the police side, and I'll point out that when we asked Milwaukee County for the data on 4 specific calls, how long they had them, their answer as a good partner was for us to file an open records request. So we did get the information through an open records request. So if the county would be under consideration to dispatch for us, that would be a treat to, get open records requests to get information from them. So it's generally between 30 seconds up to well over a minute, depending on the type of call.
That's why I said in the front end, if this had been years ago and these other opportunities hadn't been there to consolidate, I would have been all for this years and years ago. It makes no sense to me for those calls to be answered somewhere else and then transferred. But now that we know there are 3 other viable options out there, I think it's at least worth the conversation.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Vitale.
what really is being cost the city annually for, being connected with the county? I mean, there's gotta be some cost, right?
0.
Zero?
Yep, we don't pay them anything. There's no guarantee, like, if we were to have them do all of our dispatching rather than just transfer that call, I'm sure they would want a dollar amount for that. Nobody's had those talks to figure out what that dollar amount would be, but I'm fairly certain it'd be less than what we pay right now for dispatch.
Sure.
Alderwoman Reinke.
If we go this route, how many additional staff would we need to monitor it or to take care of it?
If we make the change as proposed by the police,
Yes.
that's a question for Chief Mitchell.
Oh, I think you can answer it. You put it in your paper. Go ahead.
The best we could do would be to look at other centers that do something similar.
Yes.
So Bayside is the example I keep going back to, because they made this change back in the 1990s. So even though they answer less calls, they staff more people. So I would say that we would probably need a couple more bodies per day than we do right now to keep up with that workload. Just my best guess.
And I'll tell you, having done the research and not guessing, that I 100% disagree with that statement. One of the things in the fire department white paper is that we should not, quote, rush into this. We don't rush into anything in the police department. If you're on the capital committee, or if you pay attention to the annual budgeting process whatsoever, we do white papers for pretty much everything. We've done it for my entire tenure as chief. When I came here, I said, we're not going to spend government money unless we research it and you convince me that it's the right thing to do. So we're the king of the white paper. We do white papers on everything. We don't rush into anything. 2018 is the earliest email I can find where I am talking with a chief of a suburban community, trying to get more information on receiving the 911 calls. If you recall at the last council meeting on this on August 1st, I said that we're a late adopter of technology. We do that intentionally so that other people can sort things out for us. Franklin and Oak Creek have been at this for years. They don't have any issues with this whatsoever. So, you know, his paper has a lot of data in it. At the end of the day, this really isn't about data, it's about logic. Some of his data is horribly incorrect. You know, one of the things he points out is that the county will give us 3,445 extra calls a year. 3,445 extra calls a year, okay? So he says in his paper that's a 30% increase in the workload. It's a 30% increase in a sliver of the workload. 911 is about 12% of what the center does. That's it. So the center takes hundreds, like 138,000 calls a year. So an increase of 3,000 calls a year is not a 30% increase in our workload. If you do the math, it's a 2.4% increase. So if you read his paper, and he talks about you're gonna need millions of dollars more, you're gonna need more people. Do you know what, so I always like math. I always get attracted to the numbers, and I look at the numbers. So I'm gonna give you some numbers here. Do you know what 3,445 is divided by 365? 9. Yeah, it's 9 extra calls a day. So each person working in the room will have to use 1 extra call a day. And in his paper, with his logic, to staff up to handle that 1 extra call a day per person, we will have to go, he doesn't even know how many dispatch consoles we have. He writes that we have 4 dispatch consoles, we have 5. We've had 5 for years. So he opines that we would have to be like Bayside and we would have to have 12. And it would cost 2-point-something million, which I was happy to see it at 2-point-something million because his first estimate was 6 million. So essentially we would need to go from 5 dispatch consoles up to 12, we'd have to get 7 additional dispatch councils for 9 extra calls a day. It's not a 30% increase in our workload, it is about a 2.4% increase in our workload. Now, look at how we got here in the police department. It's me going into the dispatch center for years, repeatedly, day in and day out. How you doing today? What's going on in here? Me understanding the dispatch center, which is probably pretty important because I run the dispatch center. They report to me, they don't report to him. When I go in the dispatch center and I ask the last time they saw the fire chief, yeah, they really don't know. So he's opined in a paper and made a ton of assumptions that you just can't make if you know the dispatch center. The data doesn't add up. So we'll talk about, we have 3 dispatchers on most of our shifts. So look at it this way, about 1 dispatcher for every 20,000 people. So he would tell you that the county is the gold standard. Well, the county has dispatching 911 responsibilities for about 215,000 people if you do the math. Right now, 77% of this county gets 911 calls directly in their dispatch center. All we want to do is join the 77% and give our citizens better service. That's all we're looking to do. So the county, serving 215,000 people, if you do the math, if they need 1 dispatcher for every 20,000 like we have, they need 10 point something dispatchers per shift. They're nowhere near that. So if we're understaffed, the county is understaffed. The only one that's overstaffed is Bayside. And if you want to spend money like the North Shore, I am fully in favor. Where do I sign up? When do we get to do that? That is not the good comparison for the city of West Allis. So the benefits for the citizens, right now, as it exists right now, if your loved one is having a heart attack and you call 911, you are gonna get transferred, you're gonna get Milwaukee County for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, 90 seconds, however long they decide to take with it. Then you're gonna get us. So let's say you're watching your loved one have a heart attack. Do you know what you're gonna get in the first couple of seconds on the call with us? Hi, what are you calling about? Where are you? We're gonna repeat all the same calls that Milwaukee County did because we don't know the answers to it. So we are wasting time to get you help. I was going to bring calls here for you today, but I didn't want to play them on TV because these are actual people. But we have calls in our center where people are just out of their mind. Why are you asking me that? You already asked me that. Just send me help. And that's really, at the end of the day, is all we're looking to do. So I suspected on August 1st, this is about countywide dispatch. His white paper confirms it. He spent more time talking about countywide dispatch than this issue. So tonight is not about countywide dispatch at all, at all. If countywide dispatch is something you decide you want to do and you want to work towards that goal, that's something for you to decide. It would require a lot of studying, a lot of research. But the reality is, if you vote yes today for $7,100 in grant funding, and then $286 additional dollars per month, we can deliver excellent service to the citizens of this city. So now he writes in the paper that we're gonna be overwhelmed by these 9 extra calls a day. So let's look at a crash. A crash would be probably the most common thing that would result in a lot of calls to a dispatch center. So under the current system, in their first, on August 1st, they said the county only gives us 1 call. Now their white paper clarified it because they checked with the county, and even though the county advertised that in their PSAP grant, they don't just give us 1 call. I use the example of a broad daylight shooting on 103rd and Greenfield. Broad daylight, how many calls did the county get on that? 10. How many did they send to us? In this broad daylight shooting, 1 man getting out, 103rd and Greenfield, shooting another man, then getting in his car, driving in the wrong lane of traffic, getting in crashes over a series of streets, 10 calls. Of the 10 calls, how many did they send to West Allis? 7. Handled it just fine. You're probably not gonna get much more of a complicated fact set than that. If you do get a complicated fact set, you get an active shooter in high school, if you vote yes for this change, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna send help to the high school immediately. And let's say that we get 30 calls, and let's say that once a year, we can't answer call 20th through 28 in a real super quick manner. Do you know what we're already doing by that time? Responding to the event. Under the current setup, we are not responding to that event. All you have to do is look at the fire department annual report. They have graphs in there. If you go to the PFC meetings, they report on time, 12 different metrics where they measure time. And they say it's really important for us to get to things fast. But now that we want to do this, now it's not as important to get to things fast. 12 different things in their monthly report that they use time as a metric to measure success. We want to help them get to things faster. In their annual report every year, this is from the American Heart Association. It talks about if you have a heart event and you need a defibrillator to restart your heart. Do you know that every minute that you get delayed to get a defibrillator, your chances of survival decrease by 10%? Every year it's in their annual report. So if we can shorten that up by a minute, right there you have increased the survival rate of citizens in our city by 10%. It's in their annual report, not mine. So this is very well thought out by us, very well researched. We do not need additional people. We do not need additional IT support. We do not need additional money. This is not about combined dispatch. This is about one issue. Do you want to spend $7,000 in grant funding and $286 a month to get the calls faster? That's all it's about.
Mr. President,
Alderwoman Keane.
I have just two questions. I understand that one of them was the original cost was $621, but then getting rid of technology.
Yep.
What is the technology?
Redundant phone lines and a T1 line that
Okay.
are redundant.
Okay, and then, I don't know if I missed in the white paper, would the option to text 911 still be available?
We will not have that for a few years until we upgrade our dispatch center. When you ask Milwaukee County how many text to 911 calls they get, 153 in a year. When you ask them how many of those go to West Dallas, they don't have that data. So 153 in a year in the 215,000 people that they support, plus the freeway. So the question is, do you want to get to our 1,000 plus 911 calls a month faster at the expense of the 3 people that might text 911? My answer is yes.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Grisham.
Thank you, Dana, for asking that question, because mine falls back on the text calls as well. And I know the 153 doesn't seem like a large number compared to the data you gave.
Yep.
However, in those instances where somebody would need text versus being able to make an actual call, say in the instance of a rape or home invasion or something like that, we need to be able to provide 100% service. So what would we be looking at? You said 3 years prior to?
No,
that?
it's
Or is that something?
Probably
that-
about 2 years.
Okay.
And you could upgrade that part of the dispatch center before you upgrade the rest of the dispatch center. And there would be cost associated with that.
And truth be told, as my vote would be on something like that, I would like to see that we encompass
Yep.
all of that opportunity. But I'd like to know what the numbers were, because I think, speaking as myself and not for council, I think we need to be up and running 100.
Yep.
And 3 years is too long, 2 years is too long.
I think the state deadline is 2029, and we would, under no scenario, take that long.
Right,
There's not a lot of communities that have it so far.
okay, thank you.
Are there any?
Mr. President. Yeah, thank you. Certainly I appreciate the fire department's idea of intergovernmental cooperation. That's something we've been pushing on all of our department heads, and we as a council, I know, want to work with other municipalities as much as possible, but ladies and gentlemen, I don't trust the county one bit. Oak Leaf Trail by my house has been closed for 2 years because of disrepair, and they're not going to open it again for another 2 years. That's their plan. The parkways are crumbling. The parkway roads are all falling apart in our city in particular, but somehow Wauwatosa's gets theirs repaved, but not us. The county jail is understaffed, and that's in the media. The sheriff's department can't patrol the freeways. They need the state patrol to assist them, and oh, hey, they used to have a hospital, and they used to provide mental health care. You were talking about an entity that, despite increased taxes in a form of a wheel tax and now a new sales tax that they're going to be getting, continues to do less and less and less, and what they do, they do poorly. Anything under county auspices is just a horrible idea. If we can get out of it and provide better services, it's best to go with the police idea.
Any other comments or questions for the chiefs?
Mr. President.
Chief Hoover.
So I would agree with 90% of what you say about the county. The one example I will say that they do well is emergency services, and the radio system is a prime example. 50 years ago, we all had our own little radio systems, and now we're all under one county radio system that run by Milwaukee County. We have a governance board where police and fire from every municipality are represented, and that radio system works flawlessly. It's one of the best radio systems in the country. And I would envision, once again, this isn't a conversation right now about consolidated dispatch. This is, let's not close the door on consolidated dispatch just yet. If Milwaukee County were to ever be considered as the main 911 hub for our citizens or other municipalities, there would be some sort of governance structure there to make sure they are meeting the needs of you and our citizens. So I don't want to say that the county does bad at parks, that means they're going to be a bad dispatcher. That's not the case. But ultimately, like Chief Mitchell said, this is not a conversation today about consolidated dispatch. This is about, do we take our own 911 calls from cell phones or not? It's been the current way since the beginning of time, since the 1980s when cell phones first came out. It's been working relatively okay, except for, I would agree, the 30 to 60-second delay is not ideal. But now, for the first time ever, there are other options on the table for dispatch. Why put another barrier in the way? I would say pump brakes, take some time, put together a group to talk about what dispatch could look like. If not, this is your city. I will do whatever you guys want. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that there are options out there.
Mr. President, by us taking the 911 calls now wouldn't take off the table future potential for consolidation, correct?
It has nothing to do
No.
with it.
Okay.
Well, there's a technological change in having to touch all the cell phone towers to reconfigure them to point to RSA. So we'd be undoing the change that we're doing here. So there would be a small expense, but some manpower there.
Any other questions for either of the chiefs? If not, this item is on the consent agenda with a recommendation for approval.
And approval of the police idea. The
Yes.
horses. Yeah. I knew that. I just wanted to make sure we all knew that.
Thanks.
Anything further to come before the committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Good evening. We will call the September 5th meeting of the Common Council to order. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Grisham. Here. Haas.
Here.
Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Reinke.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
Turner. 10 present.
We have a quorum. Please rise if you are able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Alderman Vitale. All right, we'll move on to item D. We have one public hearing this evening, and I will ask the clerk to read that out.
Ordinance to rezone property located at 9343 West Lincoln Avenue from RC to C2 Commercial.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to staff. Mr. Scher.
Thanks, Mayor. This first hearing is a result of the school district relocating to this property from 70th Street to Lincoln Avenue, consolidating their offices here. As a result, there's two properties involved, both of which are owned by the school district. The larger area, which is about a 2-acre site with the building on it here, is a 2-acre site, and that is zone C2, neighborhood or commercial. And then the other site is a small parking lot, an off-street parking lot for school district employees. That's zoned RC, which is a high-density residential. As part of the renovation and consolidation of these two properties, staff did not want this property to become, or this property to be a split zone property, and therefore is recommending rezoning it from RC residential to C2 neighborhood commercial. In addition, on that small site outlined in blue, the future land use category would be changed from the existing land use classification to mixed use. And then just taking a closer look at the existing zoning map here on the left and then the future land use map on the right. So with a future land use reclassification from residential to mixed use, and that would be consistent with the overall 2-acre parcel with the offices on it. And then also over here on the left, that's the zoning map. High density residential is RC, and then rezoning that to C2, which is commercial, to be consistent with the main 2-acre office property. Plan Commission has looked at this and recommended approval. They're referring to the Common Council. There has been a public notice, and there have been no objections to date. Thank you.
Let me turn my microphone on. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the council?
Mayor Devine?
Alderman Weigel.
Steve, generally when I hear mixed use, I think commercial residential. Is this going to be kind of like office light motor vehicle service? I mean, why is this mixed use?
The mixed use is the future land use category that the city assigned to it for the school or for the former office property some years ago. And mixed use is consistent with the commercial rezoning that's being recommended. So the land use classification is simply one that the city envisions, someday this property could
20
become.
years, 30 years,
Yeah,
something.
could be.
Office, and are they going to do, I think they had a little motor vehicle service in the back in the past. Is that coming back?
That is like the former lower area, like a warehouse and shop area down below. That area is being renovated as part of the office, the school district relocating its offices here. So that lower level would be renovated and there'd be a small addition added above. I don't know if you can see the cursor here. It'd be a small addition added back here for additional offices and conference rooms. There's also a workforce clinic currently within this building over on the west side of the property, and that will stay. This is really the property here that's being rezoned and reclassified is over here on the west side or right side of this building, and it's going to be consolidated via CSM. And just given the difference in zoning right now, we just want to make it consistent.
Not
split
zoning.
Yeah,
I got it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Weigel. Any other questions from the council? Seeing none, are there any questions from the members of the audience on public hearing number 1? All right. will close public hearing number 1, and we will move on to item E, which is citizen participation. This is when the council can receive information from members of the public. During this 30-minute period, the speaker must announce their name and address to the council, and the council cannot take action or debate the topics raised by the speakers due to potential violations of our meeting laws. Are there any members in the audience that wish to address the council through citizen participation this evening? Yes. Just please start out by giving us your name and address and then sign in either before or after your remarks.
My name is Gerald Griesmer, 2367 South 98th Street, West Dallas. My concern is with regard to the proposed high-rise, 6-story high-rise, high-density, 247-unit apartment complex to replace the current Clark oil refinery office building at 85th and National. This is just inconceivable. I question how the current developer qualified for a loan through the bank or whoever. I also question what is the criteria surrounding the decision-making policy on the part of the federal government grant to be offered. I understand the cost of the structure project will be approximately $64 million. This is one, you would think by now we have learned our lesson, but I guess we're just doomed to fail and repeat again and again. I don't wish to prejudge, but it would appear to me as if the developer assumes that the council will rubber stamp this project without really any detailed concern. This is on a very high visible 3-acre parcel of land, which I don't know the historic background upon it, but I would recommend that in either case, whatever will result in the end, that the site be titled Honey Creek Settlement Village. Now, when you take a complex of this magnitude, it is hardly a village. I suggest to you that the Common Council will automatically approve this project on the basis of economic development, of which I was an early part of in the city. I don't believe that the economic development committee ought to get involved in this massive, this is the route apparently that the city wishes to go because it's more economical. I don't agree. I think we need to table this proposal and put it out to any number of architects, both in the past and present, to submit alternate sketches or drafts as to what could be built on that site. Not to exceed 2.5 stories This 6-story is just another, what do you say? Another duplicate of the Sunrise Apartments. Typical of any massive apartment complex, you have a hallway down the center, right down the center. It hasn't changed since day one. That can be altered, that can be altered.
Mr. Griesmer, you've got 30 seconds left.
All right, so I am only one voice, but I am one voice, and I represent the general public and citizenry of this community. I think it would be a disgrace if this building is built. And secondly, most important, I recently belonged to the and am an active participant in the Historic Preservation Committee, as well as the Historical Society Board. And we had looked at the possibility of salvaging that turret with the witch's cap and the slate roof. And I would also recommend that the brick on the structure be recycled. Now, it is not Cream City brick, I was told by Devin Graciani, who chairs the Historical Society, but however, and then it was suggested to me that it could be lead paint. I don't think so, but if it is, who cares?
Mr. Griesmer, your time is up, so I'm going to just ask you to conclude your comments, please.
Okay, just have the tradesmen reverse the brick so it seals the brick and recycle the brick on the structure. So there's endless possibilities for this site, but none what is proposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening?
Hi, I'm Brian Gerard. 2189 South 90th Street. Yeah, and actually I'd like to talk about the same topic. Yeah, I just feel that the density of the building is just too great. It's going to be towering over National Avenue. They talked about setbacks, but on the one end, there's just not going to be much of a setback at all. And then I don't know if any of you've lived in a high-rise building like that, but you know, elevators break down, smells in the stairwell and stuff. I mean, by the time this TIF gets paid off, you know, you could have the next Morgan Oaks on your hands and everything like that. And they're really, the developer, the Three-Leaf developer, they really don't have much of a history. I mean, before 2020, they were flipping houses and stuff. So such a large building, you know, no matter if it's market rate apartments, they're, you know, you're still got people living on top of each other, and there's going to be conflict. I know, and extra police calls for the area. And then also, I mean, the normal, also with just that number of people, the traffic is going to increase, and they talked about doing a bump out there, but it's like, you know, with a fair park and other events in the city, that's just going to tie up traffic even more. You know, it's kind of a central path through the thing. I guess one other thing that I'd like to mention, the parking. I don't know if, you know, they're supposed to only have 295 spaces for 247 units, and I don't know how many, you know, to me, I don't know too many couples that don't have 2 vehicles and stuff. It's like, so, let's see if there's anything else. Oh, and I kind of looked up at, you know, the Three-Leaf proposal, and I don't see, you know, they've got a couple other things going on, like Grafton and Heartland and stuff. I don't see where they're getting a TIF on that either. So it's like, you know, to me, by the time we get the, can fully benefit from the increased tax amount, I think the property could be run down. So I guess that's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Does anybody else wish to address the council under citizen participation this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will close citizen participation. And we will move on to item F. Our standing committees will be meeting during recess. Those room numbers are listed on the bottom of page 1. If you don't have an agenda and are here for a license hearing or to do some business at the committee level, please take a look at the agenda or stop one of us on the way out, because when we break for recess is when those meetings will be taking place, and we will make sure you get into the right room. Moving on to item G, the mayor's report. I just have a few things this evening. One, I just want to give everybody a reminder that school's back in session. Some schools started last week. West Allis, West Milwaukee started today. So if you are out moving through the community, especially in the morning or in the afternoon, please be extra cautious and aware for children crossing the street or waiting for the bus or moving around near the schools. It's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of possibly new parents learning their ways to get their kids to school and pick up their kids, but just exercise patience and caution, please. Next up, I just want to remind everybody that Thursday is the next city concert series. That's on September 7th. It's going to be at Veterans Park at 69th and National, and the band this Thursday is called the Sweet Sheiks. They are described as jazz and pop songs from the teens, 1920s and 1930s, and if any of you went to Haunted Honey Creek last fall, you will know who this band is. There will also be food and drink and activities for the families. Similarly, on Friday, September 8th, we have Art on the Plaza, which is our partnership with Inspiration Studios here in West Allis. There are going to be local artists selling their art. There is going to be food, music, drinks, things like that. It's kind of a neat event right at the plaza at City Hall. So September 7th, Thursday, is the concert at 69th and National, and Friday, September 8th, is the Art on the Plaza event here at the plaza at City Hall. That is all I have for the mayor's report this evening. We'll move to item H. Are there any alderpersons' reports?
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Haas.
I have one event to add to your list of events that you had provided, Mayor, and that is tomorrow at 5 p.m. is the West Allis Community Ride for bicyclists, that kind of ride. So we meet at 5 p.m. at the Oak Brewing Company at 67th and National, and we'll leave at 5:30 and bike around West Allis. I encourage everyone to come.
Thank you, Alderman Haas. Any other alderpersons' reports? All right, then we'll go on to
Mayor Devine.
item I, Alderman Lysick.
I move for approval of the minutes of August 1st, 2023.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? All in favor? Any opposed? Guys have it, the minutes are approved. Then we do not have any standing committee reports under item J, so we will go to item K.
Mayor Devine.
Alderman Lysick.
I think there's one item that's we want to have removed from the consent agenda.
Yeah, Mayor Devine, I'd like item number 7 sent back to, I'm not sure if it'd be Economic Development or the Public Safety Committee for discussion.
Mayor, recommend public safety on that one. We take a voice majority vote of the council.
Okay. There's a motion to return that one to the Public Safety Committee. If there is
Second.
no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is sent back.
And Mayor Devine, with that exception,
Oh, hold on.
unless there's
Another, Mayor Devine.
Alderman Haas.
Yeah, then I request that items 5 and 6 likewise are referred to the Public Safety Committee. I want to say I plan on voting in favor of these items, but I just think that those items deserve more discussion rather than to be voted upon on a block vote.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Also referred.
Are there any other changes to the consent agenda? If not, then I move that the consent agenda be approved as printed.
There's a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
Reinke.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Turner. 10 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries.
Mayor Vine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we stand in recess until conclusion of the committee meetings.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in recess.
Yeah, we're gonna do licenses first. Okay, Public Safety Committee is called to order. Let the record reflect that all committee members are present. We're going to start with item number 59, 2023-0504, new operator's license bartender Class D operator application for Crystal Gleason. This is Ms. Gleason's second appearance. Is Ms. Gleason here? Okay. Was there any correspondence from Ms. Gleason? No. Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to deny.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 60, 2023-0519, new operator's license, bartender Class D operator application for James Ewald. This is Mr. Ewald's first appearance. Is Mr. Ewald here? Okay, he is not here. Is there any correspondence? No. Okay, is there a motion?
Place on hold for, opportunity to come back second time.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Item 61, 2023-0520, new operator's license bartender Class D operator application for Rihanna Garvey. First appearance, is Miss Garvey here? Did I pronounce that correctly? Please come forward.
Grab a seat right here in the middle spot.
Okay, I need to get my notes. I'm sorry, I thought I was organized. Okay, welcome, Ms. Garvey. The reason why you have been called before committee is there's some things that came up on your record that we want to give you an opportunity to explain to the council, to the committee, I'm sorry. And I see that you have an OWI as recent as May of 2024. You have 2 other citations that were prior from 20 to 21. Is your, what is the status of your driver's license, correct?
It is currently occupational.
It's an occupational?
Yes.
Okay. And can you provide any information or proof of rehabilitation for the committee?
Not currently, but I am in therapy, AODA, specialized therapy.
Okay. And has this charge been resolved?
I believe so, I usually don't.
So there is a conviction of OWI, there's nothing pending?
You
Yeah,
resolved
I've been
it.
to court and everything.
Okay, you've been to
Do you want
court.
any more pending
No.
future stuff? Okay.
No.
Okay,
Usually I
and,
would note that on there, so I didn't. on this
okay,
one,
thank
but
you,
yeah.
thank you,
I think that's a great check, though.
right. Have you, where do you plan on bartending?
Happy Tap?
Happy Tap, okay. Have you bartended before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Are you currently bartending at Happy Tap?
I have the,
Provisional?
yeah, the provisional, sorry.
Okay. All right, and what were the circumstances surrounding the OWI?
I was coming home from a bar just down the street from my house, and I was caught speeding, and then the officer said I was with a friend, and said it smelled like alcohol, so then did all the tests and everything, and, the clues came out, you know, that I was under the influence, and, I mean, it's my first offense of it. I've learned I'm in therapy now for drinking, so that's resolving that. I feel like I'm in a better place altogether. I'm in school as well, so that's kind of been my main focus.
Okay, and my question was gonna be, is this your primary income?
Yes, bartending is,
Okay, and
yes.
you're going to school
Yes,
otherwise?
yes.
Okay. Congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
that's good to hear. Do any of the other committee members have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr.
how'd you get here tonight?
My boyfriend.
Good answer.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other committee members have any questions? Okay.
Madam Chair? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned rehabilitation. What have you done?
Just right now, just the therapy for it. And so I've been going like every other week. He's kind of weaning me out now, just, you know, as I'm progressing with it. And then we just discuss my relationship with alcohol and how that affects me and the people around me as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Attorney Serwin, I have a question relative to, and maybe you can answer it directly. Typically, when you have an OWI, what did the court order for you?
So I had to go to a counselor. I forget the exact title of the counselor, and then they recommended, you know, they recommend either to take like the AODA classes, and then she recommended to me the counseling because she pretty much was like, you're not an alcoholic, but you have the signs to possibly become one. So that's why the therapy was recommended to me.
Okay.
So the court mandates that AODA assessment and treatment, and then, basically, it's a first, right? If there's not really any ramifications for not doing it, other than you can't get a license.
Okay, so there's not
So-
like a probation or anything that would
No.
be,
First in Wisconsin are non-criminal, and so there'd be a revocation period for your license, which you are currently on, but you have the occupational license. There's a fine. Do you have an ignition in law? No, okay. And then there is just the AODA assessment to get your license back.
okay,
And
alright.
so she would have had to show proof of doing the assessment to get the occupational, and then they will revoke that occupational if it's not followed, the assessment plan's not followed.
Okay, alright, that answered my question as far as the occupational license as well.
Yeah.
So you've run through the steps that
Yeah,
the
so
court
in
has asked
November,
of you.
yeah, in November, I am eligible to apply for my, full license back again.
Mhm.
And then the classes just have to be finished by therapy has to be finished by like April.
Okay.
And the therapist signs off on that.
And some of these lessons in life, they're just very hard lessons
Right,
to
yes.
learn. So I'm sorry that you went through that. I'm glad that you are looking to make some changes in your life that are positive. With that being said, when we approve licenses, we want to make sure that you're making good decisions because you're in charge of others that
Absolutely.
may not be able to make the greatest decisions.
Right.
So with that comes a very stern warning, to you if this is approved. And with that being said, I'm going to ask one more time, do any of the committee members have any questions?
I just wanted to add one more little tidbit.
Yes.
She mentioned that there's not an ignition interlock, which means it was under a .15.
Okay, all right.
If that adds
Okay.
any further information.
It does, thank you. Do any other committee members have any questions? Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Good luck.
Good luck, thank you. All right, item 62, 2023-0541, renewal for operator's license bartender Class D operator application for Janet Welch. First appearance, is Ms. Welch here? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to hold.
Okay, motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We will hold. Item 63, new operator's license bartender Class D operator application for Nicole Burke. First appearance, is Ms. Burke here? Okay, is there a motion? I should be asking, was there correspondence?
No.
Okay, so no correspondence, and may we go back to Ms. Welch, was there correspondence? No. Okay, so both 62 and 63 have not corresponded as to why they're not here. Is there a motion?
Motion to hold.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Item 64, notification for non-renewal for 2023-25 operator's license bartender Class D operator application for Sierra Jarrett. Second appearance, Ms. Jarrett? Hi, please come forward. Okay, and can I pass this over to either Attorney Monte or Attorney Serwin to kind of give an overview of?
I don't mind if
Sure.
So, just for the record and for clarification, generally I'm the advisor for the committee. For this purpose, I'm the prosecutor, and so I'll be calling witnesses. The advisor for the committee, who was already advised in the committee, is Attorney Monty. And so, how this will work is much like a normal hearing. We don't often do these non-renewal hearings, so this is going to be a little bit of a different, I don't want to say burden, but it's a little bit of a different process because I'm not going to be alleging vast amounts of new incidents with new facts. It's going to be basically what you have before you, and you have to decide what you want to do with that. So I'll ask questions, you'll have a chance to ask questions of any witnesses, and then you'll have a chance to present any information or testify to whatever you feel appropriate, okay? And then what will happen is you guys can deliberate. There's no closed session notice as far as I'm aware, and so it'll just be in open session, and you can speak with your attorney on what you think is appropriate.
Okay.
Are you okay with me calling my one and only witness?
Yes.
Okay. Deanna Petrick, please come up. You can grab a seat here. Is it Petrick?
And I don't know if you guys are gonna be comfortable with swearing in
Or can you do it?
You feel comfortable, you can feel free to do
Okay,
it.
and then,
I just make it up as I go too.
yeah, I'll just make it up as I go.
Yeah.
Promise? No. And, if you both wanna, I'll
Okay,
do
so this
both,
is
cause
what
I
it is.
imagine
Yes.
you wanna
Okay.
talk at some point, so then we'll just do it all at once to be done with it. So if you wanna raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Right.
Close enough.
Yeah. All right. So the city will call, well, as the prosecution, the city will call Deanna Petrick. Ma'am, can you state and spell your name for the record?
Deanna Petrick, DeyannaPetrick.
How are you employed?
With the West Dallas Police Department,
And what's your position with the West Dallas Police Department?
the record supervisor.
All right. And so I have in front of you what I'll identify as Exhibit 1. Miss Jarrett also has a copy, and I provided copies to all the persons. What is Exhibit 1?
It would be a summary of the Wisconsin DOT search. It's her record, that's Sierra's record through the Wisconsin DOT.
All right. DOT being Department of Transportation?
Yes.
And that record is maintained by the state of Wisconsin under the Department of Transportation?
Yes.
So you didn't make any of this up, this comes from a list or something?
Correct.
All right.
We run it through the NCIC search.
Okay.
Which I'm sorry, I don't know, national.
I'm not sure what that one means either.
So we run it through there, run her name, birthday, so we know that it's her for sure. It comes back with everything for her whole driving record.
And so this would be accurate from your perspective as of the date of September 1st, 2023, when you last ran it?
Yes.
Okay. I would move this into evidence for whatever purpose you have. Yes. We can have.
Miss Jarrett, if my memory serves me, when you came before us,
Well, I guess, do you have any questions for
oh,
Nick's witness? Otherwise, he can cut her loose.
oh, okay, no, anyone have questions? I do not.
Do you have any questions for her? Okay. And I'm gonna have just some brief questions for her, for Sierra as well.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we're okay to let
Excited.
Ms. Petrick go?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The city will next call, the city will next call Sierra Jarrett. Ms. Jarrett, can you say or spell your last name?
Yep, Jarrett.
All right, and where are you currently working?
Reunion Restaurants.
Reunion just down the road?
Yes, correct.
All right, and what is your position at Reunion Restaurant?
Assistant General Manager.
All right, what do you do as the assistant general manager?
I oversee all the functions of the front of the house and the back of the house.
Okay. For that position, do you require an operator's license or a bartender's license?
I do.
All right, what would happen if you don't have one?
I'll lose my job.
Okay. What is your current driver's license status?
It is suspended currently due to owing.
Unpaid tickets?
Yep.
All right, is there points
Just
as
one.
well?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And at a previous date, you had driven to this type of hearing, right?
Correct.
And you were honest with the committee at that time?
Correct.
Today, how did you get here?
I walked from work, but I Ubered to work.
Okay.
But I walked from work because I need to get over here. I saw your message.
Okay. And this record that I have in front of you there, is that accurate as far as you can tell?
Yes. As
Okay.
far as I can tell, I haven't really looked at my driving record, but knowing what happened on the 27th, I
Okay.
do recall.
What was your last, so this is a renewal license, 2023 to 2025. When did you first obtain a license?
A bartender's license?
Yeah. Do you remember generally the year, 2022, 2021?
I moved back from Oakland, so I graduated from Stout in 2018, 19. So I want to say like 2020, because the first job I worked at as a bartender, actually no, before that, sorry, 2019, because I had a Menominee Falls license because I was a bartender at Applebee's. I believe I got a West Allis license in 2020. I honestly can't remember. I think it was 2020, because I had my baby in 2020. 2020.
Somewhere around 2020.
2020.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
All right.
I'm not sure.
We had talked previous, actually, when you got here, we had talked, right?
Mhm.
All right. And you had told me that you have a payment plan in order to
Yes.
get your license
Correct.
situated?
Yep, because I owe the RRS due to tax.
So you're like a tax interceptor or whatever is going on?
Yeah, so because I didn't pay it to West Allis, it went straight to the, what is that, state, federal?
And then you have to have I went to the state. You have to have you have a payment plan set up, and is that payment plan, does it have a final date?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact day, but I know that I have like $453 left.
Okay, and how much are you paying a month?
I'm paying like $120 a month.
Okay, so that'll be resolved sometime this year?
Yes, and hopefully soon.
And then
I'm
your
supposed to get bonus, so that's
And you
the goal.
can't reinstate unless or until that
Yeah, up
occurs?
until that payment is finished, correct.
And your expectation is to do it this year?
Yes, correct.
How will you be getting to work beyond,
Ubering and my mom.
okay. You said you have a child, do you support anybody else?
Yeah, just my child.
Just a child? One child?
Yes, I have a 2-year-old.
Okay. I have no further questions, but I do have some arguments towards the very end, but I know Ms. Jarrett also does, so if the board has any questions, or the committee, I'm sorry.
No, you can.
Okay, Ms. Jarrett, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, prior to asking the question, the reason that I had such a struggle with approval was the fact that you weren't abiding by the law.
Correct.
And we typically don't have people come forward and say, yeah, I broke the law and I still want my bartender's license. So it threw me in good conscience. What decision do I make? On paper, you know, in person,
Yep.
you speak eloquently, you want a job, you have a job, you have a child to support, all very important, but what's vastly important is that you don't break the law.
Correct.
And that didn't set well with me, and speaking as committee chair with the majority of the committee.
Mhm.
So I have one question.
Mhm.
What is the proximity of your residence to work?
I live in Menominee Falls, actually.
Okay,
South
so
Side.
Menominee Falls
Yep.
to the reunion. How much does it cost you to Uber there and back?
It
daily?
costs, it's really dependent on what time I leave, so it can range between $25 to $30.
So is it your testimony that you pay anywhere to $50 to $60 a day to go to work?
No, not always. So it's really dependent on if I'm opening, working a mid-shift or closing, is dependent on if I have a ride. I'm not always Ubering unless I can't get a ride. So I'll typically ask my child's father to give me a ride, my mom to give me a ride if she's off. I'll typically try to ask somebody to give me a ride because it is expensive. But if I can't find a ride, then I'll have to Uber,
Okay.
just due to our last encounter.
All right, so on average, how many times a week would you say that you Uber?
I couldn't really give you an average.
Okay, I don't have any additional questions. Do any of the other committee members have any questions?
You were, yes.
Go ahead.
Chairman, you were saying, going what she was saying just now, it sounds to me like you're probably spending about the same amount of money that you owe just on Ubering each month, am I correct?
No, I wouldn't agree, because it's honestly, it's really dependent on if I can get a ride. If I can get a ride, I have a ride. If I can't, then I'll Uber.
Okay, so
But,
you're saying that maybe once a week, you might take a Uber?
Maybe once, I can't give you a definite number.
Okay. And the other thing I'd like to ask you, you were saying that you're making payments.
Correct.
Are these was this payment plan started because the state talked to you first, or did you talk to them first?
No, I
Did
got a
you
letter.
Did you make this plan that you were gonna do this before they told you that this is what was
No.
gonna happen with your?
No, I got a letter in the mail saying that I owe from taxes, and then it let me know like I also owe from West Alice, so it was the taxes in West Alice, so that is on the payment plan.
Okay, so you're actually paying them every month yourself?
Correct.
Not from your tax return or anything like
No,
that?
correct,
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alderman Turner. Does any of the other committee members have any questions? Okay, I will then pass it back to,
Do you have, I just wanna make sure she has a chance to present any evidence or information, so basically that's my case in chief, it's called, is like with the time when I present evidence, now it's your turn to present argument or evidence that you see fit.
I don't really have any argument, but my only thing is like I understand what you were saying last time about like me breaking the law, because since I have this record here, I was driving with a suspended license. But my only setback was that is like I didn't understand the correlation, because I feel like when I went and did my research, like legally you can only deny somebody's license if they're like have a misdemeanor, a felony, that's something that relates to like what they're being denied for, so my bar license, and that I need that to work in order to pay my bills. And I've never once abused my liquor license or never once did anything with underage. It's just unfortunately my driving record, and that's because I got in a car accident, which is the reason why my license is suspended.
Anything else?
No, other than
Okay.
that, no.
I need to answer back to that
Yes,
as
that's
far
fine.
as on the record, the reason why I made the motion for denial is because when you're a bartender, it's not just a matter of, you know, whether you're responsible for other people. If you are breaking the law, I think that substantially relates to the licensing activity. You may just be managing right now, and I don't wanna say just, you may be managing the bar, being a hostess in a different purview of what a typical bartender would be. But giving you that license, you could not work at Reunion tomorrow, and you could be bartending somewhere else. And I personally feel, and I think I stated my case as to why I thought it substantially related it to the activity. So I would like clarification from Rebecca Monte in stating, you know, how does this not relate substantially if you're breaking the law? You know, it isn't just if you're drunk driving, in my opinion. You have repeated offenses of not abiding by the law. And what we expect of you and what your license would curtail is that, A, you have a problem in the bar, you need to call the police.
And
You know what I
actually
mean?
had-
And-
No, sorry to not to cut you off.
Right.
Am I allowed to speak? I'm sorry.
Well, just let me
Yeah,
finish
I'm
and
sorry.
then you may definitely speak. But, you know, there's a host of different responsibilities. And breaking the law, I think, is a huge part of why you would be denied. So I don't know what the law says besides have you shown rehabilitation. To me, you haven't shown rehabilitation if you're breaking the law and you come to the meeting here in which you admit, I broke the law. And it's sort of like ties our hands. Are we supposed to say, okay, anybody can come before this committee and break the law, and because you feel that it doesn't fit under this purview of what licensing activity means, that you get away with that? You know, we take it very seriously if you get a bartender's license, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I don't think this changes my mind personally. But I would like to hear from Rebecca, Ms. Monte,
I
on
don't
this.
think that the law is clear enough. I mean, I think that it's obviously set up to handle OWIs and substance abuse issues, and I think that's where the rehab comes in, because they're expecting people to easily be able to show or prove
Right.
rehabilitation from those issues. I don't think it really contemplates this specific type of situation, because it's not specifically a substance abuse issue or a misuse of the liquor license. That's not to say that a court wouldn't agree with you that failure to adhere to the rules in one situation could mean failure to adhere in another situation, but I think it would be something that hasn't been decided by a court yet sufficiently enough that it would be essentially a test case and depend on what the judge happens to, how they happen to come down on it. I think it would be kind of close, to be honest, in terms of what other legal authority might think about that approach to this situation.
Okay, thank you.
Madam
Hi.
Chair, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Do you mind if I give my prosecutor's input on that?
Oh, no, I don't mind, please do.
Okay. So, I think Attorney Monti is correct in a lot of that, in that this is interplay between exactly what this committee does, which is Chapter 125, alcohol licensing, and then specifically employment or license discrimination under Chapter 120 or 111.335. And so what it talks about there is that there are certain prohibitions. One of those prohibitions, which is what I think you're directly speaking to, is to not issue a license to somebody who's a habitual law offender. And it doesn't have to be a criminal offense, it doesn't have to be tickets, it doesn't have to be even convictions. There's a lot of case law to support that. However, I would say 2017 or 18, the law changed to add a caveat or an exception, so long as it comports or complies with Chapter 111.335, which is the discrimination part of it. And that's where that substantially related comes from. So I think the issue from my perspective is it's open, and I agree with everybody's perception here, but these are operator license as opposed to Class A license or Class B license are shall issue licenses. These are ones that we don't get as much discretion on as opposed to an operator, an actual bar being issued. And so when we look at these, the ones that I would point to are the operating while suspended. And if you want to make that argument, there's an argument there potentially that if the state doesn't trust you with a license to drive, why should the municipality trust you with a license for operating? I think on the flip side of that, the language is very specific, substantially related to the licensed activity, not related to, not tangentially related to. And so I have concerns, and I'm saying this as the prosecutor, I have concerns of whether or not this is legally supportable or supported. I think the better argument from my perspective is not necessarily, I think we could just rip this up potentially and say, okay, the license is what it is, but we expect licensees to follow the law. And if you demonstrate that you don't follow the law when you arrive, then why would we expect you? And that's not based on a license or a record necessarily. And so we probably don't even have to talk about 111.335 in that scenario because we're not talking about a record. So I think what we have to talk about then is if we expect our licensees to follow the law, how or what can Ms. Jarrett do to demonstrate that she's going to follow the law, or what kind of short leash potentially, since she needs this to pay it back and get a license, which I think everybody has in their best interest to get a driver's license so she doesn't fall in this hole again. Is there any checks and balances we can put on it? This isn't a license that we can issue a conditional license on or conditions to that license, but we could do, if you were to so choose, is issue a summons and complaint in a few months if the license hasn't been obtained, or double check and see if there's a single new violation after this point that is related to a license. I'll issue a summons and complaint right away. I'm not trying to shoot myself in the foot for this one, and I'm not trying to give you guys pigeonhole. I'm just trying to give you options at this point because I'm in favor of making sure people have resources and money to pay off and get back to an even ground. So that's my 2 cents. It's shaky, but I think there's arguments there. I'm going to implore, whatever happens, Ms. Jarrett, is that you and I have had good conversations. The last thing you need to do is dig yourself a little bit deeper of a hole. I know, right? Yeah.
And what he said kind of sparked my memory. So 111, what he's talking about is the employment prohibition. You can't use somebody's record against them in employment, and kind of, I don't know if this is a law school class, but like the kind of classic example is if somebody has a misdemeanor theft, you can't refuse a job to them unless they're like handling large amounts of cash. Like it has to be related to what is going on. And that's, so that's kind of the issue that I think Attorney Serwin's getting into with, well, is it substantially related to the licensed activity?
That makes sense. All right, thank you both. Now, Ms. Jarrett, you wanted to say something in response?
Yeah, I don't want to lose my job, but whatever decision you guys make, I have to understand it. But this, honestly, I would pretty much lose my job because I'm not able to operate in the capacity that I need to operate.
Thank you.
If approved, can you commit to the committee at this point that you will not be driving a vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and if you end up catching another ticket, if you happen to get it approved,
I will allow you guys to give me a deadline. November 1st, it'll be paid off. My license will be reenacted. Like, we can, on record. November 1st.
Okay.
Because I'm getting a bonus. Sorry, guys. I'm really excited about that. Really excited. So, yes.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, one of the things that's important to us is that we got people who are out there, it seems like you like your job, you work your way up to get into that point, and we want to be the last people to do that. And I think your attitude today is a lot different than it was last time we talked. Before it was, I know I'm driving without a license. It almost seemed like I'm gonna do it tomorrow again, and I did it today. So what do? We're kind of stuck. But you're saying right now that you're making an effort not to do that. That's important, I think, to all of us right now.
Yes.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I'm up for a promotion, guys. So,
Well, congratulations
thank you.
on that. Does anyone else have any input or questions? Okay. At this time, would there be a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Do we have to do a roll call? I don't think we have to. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alderwoman Ranky, we had a
No.
vote? No, okay. So 4 yes, 1 no. All right. So, we're
That's-
concluded.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
So it's gonna
What
go.
does that mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's gonna go to the overall committee, and you could still be denied if enough of those council members, but this is half of the council, and so there'd have to be a lot of them.
Okay, sounds good.
So you can stick around if you want, or I don't know if you have to.
Oh,
You can if you want, or you can, do you have to go back to work?
okay. I'll let them know what's going on.
Ms. Jarrett, I appreciate you coming forward and your candor, and I wish you the best. And
Thank you.
congratulations on your promotion.
Well,
And
I
if
will
you
actually
need- and if
determine
you
my
need to get back
promotion.
to- If you need to get back to work, you can go.
Yeah,
and
I
you
can-
check with
Yeah,
Rebecca.
we
let
can
you know.
get to you.
It's okay. Honestly, I'll just let them know what's going on. Because like I said, this is important for my job and my promotion, so I'll just.
Yeah.
We're gonna be here a while, we got other stuff to discuss.
All right, so we have 3 items coming back to committee for
I can
discussion.
go the rest, Rebecca, if you wanna go, whatever you want.
Thank you all. And we're gonna start with, item number 502023061, ordinance to repeal and recreate dangerous dog regulations. The recommendation was to pass. Alderman Huss, I believe, requested item 5 and 6 to come back. What discussion are we having relative to the dog regulations?
I can speak to that if you'd like.
Please do.
So I'm not sure if any of the committee members here have been on the Administrative Appeals Review Board, but that's where we review dangerous dog appeals that come through. And so
Thank
really
you.
what this was spurred on by was a very cumbersome and kind of unintuitive, in my perspective, process for police officers and for dog owners. And so my goal was to clean up the code, make it a significant, I guess from my perspective, amount more readable. It's not changing much of what we enforce. It's giving a little more discretion to law enforcement in terms of adding or subtracting different criteria. It's giving a little more discretion to the city attorney's office to approve certain levels of insurance that people would have instead of making it $1 million coverage. And then it's shortening the timeline for the appeal closer to what the state law is and what other municipalities are. So right now we're a 30-day window for appeal, which I think makes some sense if you're talking about people doing some very heavy lifting, like putting in fences or different things. But frankly, people don't do that within that time limit anyways. They ask for extensions. And so we bumped it down to 10 days to get that appeal in and to comply with the order. Largely, that'll be hardest on the police officers, but in talking with them, they think they can manage that. And it'll be best for the community because we've got people that complain or get concerned about dogs that bite people or other dogs or escape. And then they wait 30 days and the dog is still just hanging around without any repercussions or any issues. And so, and that's to get to a hearing, and then we go to Muni Court, and then we go to Circuit Court, and so it can last a very long time. So the goal of this is really just to clean up the code. It doesn't change the procedure, it doesn't change the underlying goals. It gives more discretion, it cleans it up, and it shortens the timeline so the community can feel safer from my perspective.
Okay. That sounds good to me. However, when I was reading through, there was one thing that stood out and just needed clarification is aggressive dogs. That has to be something that is off property. So say, for example, neighbor A is walking by the house with her dog and the dog charges the fence line. Jumps up, could potentially scratch through. I saw scratching, biting, things like that. We've gotten calls, I've gotten calls as alder, that, you know, somebody believes that dog who's tied in their yard, even though there's no fence line, because it's an aggressive bark or it charges down to the sidewalk. It's not able to get to the sidewalk, but how do we view that as far as the ordinance? Would that dog then be deemed, if there's a complaint, aggressive?
So two things. The biting, scratching language that's in red on the very top of it, that's all the language that's being repealed and taken away.
Okay.
And so I know Kale did a big rewrite to what I have. We have definitions up front. Give me 1 second to double check that.
Thank you. and my concern with that is there's a lot of, there's so many dog lovers in the community and, intimidation by those that may not be dog owners and don't see it the same way and look at a dog as being aggressive.
Dogs protect their territory, so if they're in there, somebody's coming near their yard, they're gonna obviously
Right.
bark and.
So, this is a good discussion because this is kind of the split that was in the city attorney's office as well. And so my review is that this is only for dangerous and prohibited animals, not necessarily just dogs. I think we talk about dogs the most because that's what we get, but
Correct.
maybe a snake gets out once, I don't know. So, in talking with Kale, I can't speak for him, but I believe his opinion on that, one of the iterations of the code had a nuisance animal section where it would be identified as like citation stuff. So, excessive barking, howling, whining, charging fences, stuff like that. I think that was removed from this iteration of the code because it was Kale's perspective that exists elsewhere, specific chapter 18, I believe. And so I will confirm that to make sure it's in there. But we do have like a nuisance animal section in chapter 18, and so we didn't want to have two sections of the code competing for enforcement. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I think you did.
Okay.
But
I wanted
the
to.
wording is very important because obviously when there's residents that look up our ordinances, they want clear language that
Right.
is not going to conflict. So that makes sense if there's clear definitions of that, in my opinion. That's all I have. Does anyone else have any points of discussion? And I know Alderman Haas asked it to come back. He didn't really specify why. Is that
Madam
something
Chair.
that we go ahead, Rebecca.
I
I'm
believe
sorry.
he just wanted just to have some discussion because they were larger changes. Well,
Okay.
And so, just to speak to that again, so chapter 18 is all nuisance conditions, and so I think Kale's perspective was, instead of having a nuisance animal and then a nuisance animal section somewhere else, chapter 18 1803 sub 3 sub I says noisy animals, keeping or harboring of any animal which by frequent or habitual howling, yelping, barking, crowing, or making of other noises, to the great discomfort and peace and quiet of the neighborhood, or in such a manner as to materially disrupt or annoy persons in the neighborhood who are of ordinary sensibilities. So you can be cited for that. I think his goal was not to double enforce.
Okay, and I'm gonna give a scenario as a animal owner, dog specifically. Years back, I had a Sheltie, who was very communicative. And I was not familiar with the breed, so much to say I called a dog rescue because I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with the barking. And I certainly don't want my neighbors to deal with the barking. So after learning what I needed to do as an owner, I recall leaving during the day to make a short trip to the store, come back, and I had a notice from the police on my door. It was during the day, and the dog was in the house, and it was explained to me. They looked through the window, the dog did what the dog was supposed to do, bark at the door, quieted down afterwards. But I was told, do that due to the fact that there was a report on file. If I get another complaint, I was going to get a citation. And I didn't feel that to be fair. Does this fall into that category of how, is there, I guess, what word am I looking for? The police to make that decision? Discretion, correct.
It is citable under chapter 18. That would not be something that's generally citable, or here's a different way to put it. And you maybe only know this if you're on the Administrative Appeals Review Board. There's the reactive response and the proactive response. So the reactive response is a ticket for an act that had taken place. So the barking or yelping or whatever it's going to be might be the reactive response. What you're asking would not fall under the dangerous or the prohibited animal statute, because that resolves around fights or bites or scratches or something along those lines. And so
Okay.
yelping or barking would not give you a dangerous dog
Okay.
in any capacity. It would have to have some sort of incident that would be injuring a person or unprovoked and off the owner's property. You can't get a proactive
Correct.
resolution. It would only be reactive. That you might get a ticket if the officer thinks this is an ongoing problem.
Okay, and that's where the question came, just based on that nuisance part that that you brought up, so, okay. that covers it for me. Is there any other questions? Okay. So do we, take this back as a vote, or, okay?
Yeah, I would read it out just like the rest of the committee report when we go back.
Okay, all right, so,
So we need to make a.
we need to
you're
make a
right.
motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, item 6 is 020230062, ordinance to allow for optional bicycle and motor bicycle registration by city residents. I looked this over, and I think if you wanna get some clarification on it, the changes is, this is optional versus required. Okay.
I believe that is looking it up, because
And,
neither of us.
and my
are-
question would be,
Following this one, I'm sorry.
you know, my question would be, as a bike owner, well, my statement, as a bike owner, would I choose to license it? If I, what are the benefits of licensing your bicycle or your e-bike, besides the fact if it were stolen, it could be identifiable?
That would be the
I
benefit.
believe that would be the benefit, yes. That you
Okay.
can optionally tell and register that bike so that it can be tracked at some point in
Right.
the future.
I wouldn't consider this something that, okay, it's an automobile where we have state statutes that cover this, so why would we, you know, insert ourselves on a local level to adopt an ordinance that by choice, if you're taking a chance of getting your bike stolen and never recovering it, that's on you. That's my thought on it. So I think that's an overreach of us to have to try to get in the pockets a little bit more for a license fee. And that's just the honest truth on my end.
So just for clarification, so making a mandatory license would be that concern versus an optional license here,
I'd be fine with,
there's no enforcement, there's no, it's just,
right,
if you wanna tell us, we can try to help you later.
exactly.
Okay.
So you can still license it if you choose to, they're still available, but it's not a mandatory. So like, what would the ramifications be that you don't license your bike? I mean, is there something in our language?
No, there's no
That,
penalty
okay, you're
section.
caught riding your bike and you don't have it licensed, you're gonna get a ticket?
There's no penalty section associated with it.
Okay, this is
So then
nonsense.
it's kinda useless.
Yeah, it's nonsense. So, okay. All right, is there any further discussion? Anybody have any input? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item 7, 020230063, ordinance incorporating general license disqualifiers into alcohol licensing. That's a lot of wording here that
Yeah, I
I
can
would
speak
like
to that
some
one.
clarification
Yep, that
on.
one I can speak to easily.
Thank you.
So prior to Kale rewriting the code for alcohol licensing, we had a section in the license, or in that area that would say you have to operate, sometime within the last 30 days. We don't want people just sitting on licenses and just kind of monetizing them or having them be a commodity, because there are a finite number of them that the community can use. So, that was in the code. Kale took that whole section and put it into chapter 9.51 and applied that to you have to basically affirmatively adopt that section. There was a request for for me to review a property that wasn't operating, and I learned at that point that we don't have that 30-day window in there any longer. And so really all this is doing, and the only thing this is doing, is adding those qualifications from 9.51 into 9.60, which is the licensing. And those include, and let me get them really quick, but it's stuff that we're already enforcing, but for really that 30-day window. So give me 1 second. And it's only adopting 9.511A through E, so nothing else in that process is being adopted. And it's basically that the person is disqualified because of section 9.49. I hate sending people around to different things, but really what that one is that they have a bunch of different disqualifications that we already consider, like they owe fees to the city, they're not on a payment plan, stuff that we already enforce. So that one's nothing new. Failed to maintain order on the premises, we can already enforce that for license, so we're not adding anything there. Not exercise the license activity for 30 consecutive days, that's what we wanted to have added on. The activities have caused a public nuisance, I can really kind of allege that just by incidents if someone's complained as it is. And not complied with conditions under which it was granted. That one's a good addition, frankly, because when we issue these licenses, there's another section that kind of hits on this too, but when you issue a license and you put conditions on it, we want to be able to revoke for that if we want to. So we're just making this section more explicitly in there so I can actually do more enforcement.
Sounds good to me.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
So
Alderman Rowe.
30 days you're not open?
We can, if somebody tells me, I'm not like going around to these places. I can if you guys want me to. I can go try them all out.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, but if basically if planning tells me that like, hey, this is just, they've been sitting on the license, nothing's happening, then I can come forward on that and bring it up. I believe you were on the committee last time when this was an issue.
Yes.
Yeah. Packer season. We'll open in Packer season.
Wow, Nick.
Yeah.
I've never seen this side of you.
Okay, are you finished, Alderman?
I'm
Okay, any other
How can I come back
discussion?
on that?
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion
to
carries.
adjourn.
Okay, second. Okay, motion and a second. We are adjourned.
Good evening. We'll call the Common Council back to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale. Here. Weigel.
Here.
Grisham. Here. Haas.
Here.
Keen. Here. Lysick.
Here.
Ranky.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
Turner. 10 present.
Quorum's present. We'll begin with the Administration Committee.
The Administration Committee made a motion to proceed with the City Attorney's recommendation.
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of the committee report.
Thank you, Alderman Haas. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham. Aye. Haas.
Aye.
Keen. Aye. Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Turner. 10 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next, we have the Economic Development Committee.
Economic Development Committee made the following recommendations. Hold item number 52, adopt item 53, hold item 55, deny based on the concentration of alcohol, number 56, place on file 57, and pass 58, and 54 will be read out separately.
Thank you.
Mayor Devine, I move for adoption of the committee report.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen.
Aye.
Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Turner.
Aye.
10 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. And then we have item 54.
Mayor Devine, I move for approval of item 54.
We have a motion and a second, which we don't need a second, I don't believe. Any discussion on item 54? Hearing none, I'll ask clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel. Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen.
Aye.
Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
No.
Stefanski.
No.
Turner.
Aye.
8 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. And that is item 58. Was a separate action or no?
No, that was passed.
Oh, that was passed. I wrote my notes down wrong. So we're concluded with economic development. And then we will go into public safety.
And number 64 will be read out separately.
Yes.
Okay. The Public Safety Committee recommended passage of items 5, 6, and 7. Denial for item 59 based on non-appearance. Hold item 60. Grant item 61. Hold item 62 and 63.
Thank you.
Mayor Devine, I move to approve the committee report for public safety.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen.
Aye.
Lysick.
Aye.
Ranky.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Turner.
Aye.
10 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Then we have item 64.
Mayor Devine, I move to approve item 64.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Mayor Devine,
I
what
hear
was
one.
this being called out separately for?
It was a 4-to-1 vote in committee.
Okay. What was the reason of denial or?
Alderwoman Ranky, would you like to voice on that?
This person continues to disregard our laws with repeat offenses. She's got 9 offenses. They're having to do with driving, most of the offenses. I just can't support this renewal because to me, she's a habitual offender. And in principle, I don't like how she flaunts the law.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, then I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alderperson Vitale.
No.
Weigel.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
No.
Keen,
Aye.
Lysick,
Aye.
Ranky,
No,
Rote,
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Turner,
Aye.
7 in favor, 3 opposed.
Motion carries.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting, Tuesday, September 19th at 7 PM.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.